Welcome to Newcomers on Fire, the podcast guiding you to thrive in your new country. I am Miguel, your host. Moving to a new country is tough, and starting over can be even tougher. But it doesn't have to be. With the right mindset and community, we will help you accelerate your journey. In each episode, we talk to people who have been through it, and they shared how they did it, step by step. Remember, success leaves clues, and my goal is to motivate and support you to build the life you want, wherever you are. This podcast is just the start. If you want more, you should check out our community. That is where the real magic happens. If you find value in this episode or have a story to inspire newcomers, I would love to hear from you. You can send us a message or record a short video at story.onfire.show. Sharing your experience can make all the difference from someone who is just starting. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Joco, a newcomer from the Philippines. Joco invested his life savings to study an MBA in Canada. However, after graduating, he struggled to find a job. He applied to 500 positions and landed only 10 interviews. We dive into Joco's challenges as a newcomer, dealing with employers wanting Canadian experience and permanent residency, the stress of being on a study permit, and rebuilding his confidence after constant rejection. Joco also shares the networking strategies that finally help him land a job, like focusing on fellow newcomers and IB alumni. Listen to hear his advice to his past self and his message to all newcomers coming to Canada. You will learn tips on lowering your expectations, extending your financial runway, and many more.
Welcome to the Newcomers on Fire Show with your host, Miguel Abascal. Listen to people like you sharing their journeys, struggles, and their breakthroughs. Be ready to be inspired to take control of your time, career, finances, and future. Fulfill your potential. Become the person you're meant to be and make your dreams a reality.
Welcome back to another episode of Newcomers on Fire. Today we have Joco. Joco, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Miguel?
I'm doing great. Unfortunately, this morning I had to go to an urgent care clinic just because I stepped on a nail. So you can just
Oh
imagine.
no. Oh man.
I
That
know
must
it
not
was
have been a
painful.
great weekend for you.
Yeah, it was
And yeah.
great until I stepped on that nail. Of course. But Joko, I'm pretty sure you have heard this before, but your last name is amazing. Is your last name is Amante, which in Spanish means lover. So
Oh
tell us
yeah.
more about that.
Funny enough, I only found out what my last name actually meant fairly recently. Um, when I came to Canada and I had and did my MBA here and studied with a bunch of really great people from Latin America. They would come up to me and say, "Hey, do you know what your last name means?" And I was like, "No, what does it mean?" and
Exactly.
they would be like, "Oh, it means lover." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that's amazing."
I love your last name. I think it's super cool. So yeah, I'm super excited to have this discussion today with you. Yeah, like if for the benefit of everybody, can you please tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I came to Canada very, very recently. I came to Canada last February 2022 to do my MBA at Ivy Business School. Before that, I worked in the world of venture capital, management consulting, and startup advisory. And so I had a bit of experience coming into the country. And I really moved to Canada because I wanted to get access to a better quality of life. I wanted to make more money, um, and I eventually landed a job at the end of my MBA. So I'm now working for the city of Aurelia, and I'm building an innovation lab for the city. But the road to my job was not easy. Looking back, I probably applied to over 500 jobs. From those 500 jobs, I received maybe 10 interviews. And of those 10 interviews, I got two offers. And so
Wow.
the numbers weren't great. And when I came to Canada and made that big investment to move here and to do my MBA, I did not think I would struggle so much. But I made it in the end, and I'm pretty happy with where I'm at right now. Um, But yeah, it was not easy.
Yeah, I can just imagine. And you are right. Like as Mexican, if I go to a very prestigious university, it's, I don't know you, but I feel like it's like I'm good. Like I'm golden because with this university I can get any job. So that mindset, and I think we talked before, but in the Philippines might be similar, where education is held at a very high esteem, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly. So, wow. So 500 interviews, sorry, 500 job applications, 10 interviews, 2 job offers. Wow. What was what was your plan before coming to Canada?
My plan before coming to Canada, oh man, I wanted to be a consultant. I wanted to work for the MBBs, like the McKinseys, the Bains, the BCGs. I think every MBA, well, most MBAs will sign up for an MBA to get a chance at working for these big consulting firms. And
Right.
my backup was to work for one of the big four consulting firms, so like the Deloittes, the PwCs, those types of firms. Um, so I applied to all of them. I interviewed with some of them, but by uh, early 2023, all of these firms stopped hiring because the economy was in really bad shape and no one really knew what was going to happen, moving forward. Um, so that was my plan, that was my plan to work in a consulting firm when I entered the country, and as the months went by, I soon learned that my plan would just remain a plan. um, and that's when things got really tough. I had to look at jobs outside of my initial interest. I realized that hey, the consulting market might be hurting a lot right now, but uh, the government market might be an interesting place for me to look at because some local governments they do their budget planning years in advance, and so that budget is locked in regardless of what happens in the economy.
Right.
So I started looking there and found a job in the city of Aurelia that looked very very interesting, and I just got lucky. All of the stars aligned, and I somehow got the job.
Wow. Let's unpack that story a little bit more because, as you mentioned, you prepare for all the big consultant companies, and now you're pivoting, you're changing. What other kind of challenges did you face during this transition, or applying to different kind of job?
Yeah, great question. I faced a number of challenges. I'll highlight the really big ones that I was frankly, very surprised about. One of the big challenges I encountered was I would apply to a company, I would make it all the way to the final round. And at the final round, the interviewer would find out that I was on a work visa. I was not a citizen nor a permanent resident, and they would say something like, "Hey, this is a permanent position, and so we're looking for either a citizen or a permanent resident," and that just blew my mind because if you're on work visa, you just need to work like a year, and then after a year, you should be able to get PR, and then after once you have PR, getting your citizenship should be fairly easy, and I got a number of rejections that were PR or citizenship related, and I
Oh,
was just
wow.
very, frankly, very surprised. Um, Although it wasn't explicitly stated in the interview process, I got the sense that some of my interviewees were looking for candidates that had Canadian work experience, and to some, I don't know. I don't. I may be biased because I'm a newcomer, but I frankly don't see the value of Canadian work experience so much. I mean, I worked in the Philippines. I worked in with companies across Asia, and man, they had some really. I helped them. I helped companies solve some really tough challenges, and I feel like I developed some transferable skills that I could use, in jobs here in Canada. And I did an MBA in Ivy, and so that gave me that kind of helped me learn what it's like to work in Canada. It really gave me that foundation to really come into a company and be like, hey, I know how things work here. I know how things work in this industry. And so it was just weird. getting rejected because I didn't have Canadian experience per se. Um, One final reason why I feel I had such a tough time was because I feel like I don't know, I feel like I came in with the wrong expectations. Um, I was very I feel like I was overly optimistic when I entered the
Mhm.
country. I My thinking was, hey, I'm investing so much in this MBA, and so when I graduate, things should be easy, right? I mean, I should get a job
Yeah,
right away. And so
right.
I turned down a lot of um, great opportunities. I didn't apply to all of the jobs I could have. I didn't, network with all of the people I could have networked with because, they were in companies that frankly just weren't in my radar at the time. And then that's one of the things that made it so tough for me as well.
Oh wow, Joko, so much to unpack. The first one, it's I think definitely it is a red flag if somebody says like, oh, we are looking for somebody that has a permanent residency or a citizenship. It's like that person doesn't understand the immigration process and nor understands how hard a newcomer that is in a temporal visa will work to get that permanent residency. I know so many different people that they work three times as hard as anyone just because it's like this is my shot. I just got the job. This is my shot, and I'm going to stay here until I get the residency, which it could take 3 years. So that idea of like this is temporal, therefore you cannot get it, it blows my mind. So
Yeah.
it is at the same time it's saddening. It's sad because it's like wow, like it's so hard, and definitely I think people need to, especially some higher managers, need to understand a bit more about that part. And I'm happy that we're talking about this because one of the things that I realized is that when it was also hard for me, it took 5 years to find a job in my profession, and for many years I said like, well, it's because of me. I'm dumb. It's like even though I have a
No.
master's degree, international experience, it was me. It's like, oh, I'm the only one that couldn't make it, no? But the more I talk with people, I know people with PhDs, three master's degrees, and so much, and they are still struggling. They are still. It takes still 7 years, 8 years to get to the same level that they have back home. So it's like there is something systemic, and the more we talk about it, the more we make visible. So thank you for sharing. The second component about Canadian experience. Oh boy. I think people now are not allowed to talk about it, but to your point, they are just asking questions or acting as like inferring in terms of that, which it doesn't make sense to me too, because sometimes we come from countries where they are like 10 times, 20 times, 50 times larger than Canada. And we have like a very significant experience. But again, it's just because they might not know the company. There's like that creates a lot and I have a hypothesis there as well, where I don't think it's the Canadian experience that people are worried about. I think it's the Canadian cultural competence that people are worried about. It's like, are you aware of how we are so diverse that are you going to, do you already know how to play with the culture of cultures and how to communicate everything? But again, going back to the point, it's like, yeah, I work in international companies, and yeah, I have an idea. And but again, it's I think there is still a lot of education in this process of like just bringing up our higher managers and different companies up to speed, because definitely. And lastly is like this journey, Joko. It's fun. It's amazing that we can share these ideas, because also people are going to be like, hey, you know what? I'm not that alone. It's like I'm not broken. I'm not damaged. In fact, this is just like how it is. So thank you so much for sharing. So let's just unpack a little bit more about how did you land that first job. I know that you apply online. What else happened? Did you do anything extra or additional to get to outstand or to get like selected to that job interview?
Funny story. I really just got lucky with the job that I ended up accepting. I didn't have to network with anyone from the city of Aurelia. Um, I literally just found the job opening online, sent my application in. A couple of weeks later, I received an invitation to interview, and I went through all of the different interview stages, and I eventually landed my offer. But I I don't know. I just got lucky, and I wouldn't say that you know that's the formula to success. You just have to apply to a job, and then you'll eventually get your interview. No, I found most of my success landing interviews and making it all the way to the final stage by actually networking with people in the companies that I was applying at. And so what I would do was I would look for international students who joined the company shortly after graduating. I would look for Ivy alumni who had been working in the company for a number of years. People with influence already. I would really just look for people who had commonalities with me, and reach out, introduce myself, and try to get them to vouch for me internally. And that's how I really landed, these interviews and made it through all of the different interview stages. Um, but yeah, for the one job that I accepted, I just got really lucky.
It was meant to be, Joko. That's amazing. You know what? Sometimes that's what it takes, right? It's just like, okay, you need to show that you're applying, you're doing the things maybe in different companies, different industries. But then the one that is meant to be is the one that is meant to be. Quick question about how do you network? Did you know how to network before coming to Canada, or is this something that you learn here as well?
No, I was very surprised that I had the network to actually, get interviewed. That just blew my mind.
Right?
Back in the Philippines, it was just like you get an interview if you have a really good resume. If you went to the right school, if uh, showed on your resume that you have leadership experience, that you know how to do this and that and that. If you have a good resume, you're good. uh, in Canada, I learned that that's not always the case. Um, the rationale I was given was, these large companies, they get hundreds and hundreds of applicants, and all of these applicants essentially look the same to the recruiter, and so they're only going to interview the people who they really know and who they trust to some extent,
Right.
and that's where networking really comes in. And so I was fortunate enough to go to a school that had an amazing career management team, and so um, throughout my MBA, I would often schedule these weekly calls with my career advisor, and she would help me learn how to network, what to say on LinkedIn, what to say in my first call, and all of that. It was something that I had to learn, and something that I was frankly quite surprised I had to do.
Especially because you pay a high fee for an MBA, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not expensive. Like anyone can look up online how much an Ivy MBA tuition is for international students. And
It's
man,
insane.
I put all of my life savings
Yeah.
into the MBA and got a massive loan and this and and I had to get a scholarship just to make it happen. Um, and so yeah, I didn't. There were a lot of things I didn't see coming to Canada. I thought everything would just be smooth sailing for me.
So let's go a little bit deeper into that networking component. So, for example, you were learning from scratch, as I did, as many we are doing. What was the thing that make it work for you? Like learning how to say, tell me more about yourself, or what was that first step that you took in order to be more confident in approaching people?
Mm, yeah, what was the one thing that I did? Um, I spent a lot of time practicing my "Tell me about yourself" speech. So I found that the sweet spot is to talk for about no more than 3 minutes,
Right.
and just don't go through your life as if you're reading your resume. Um, present yeah you It's good to start with like a highlight, and so say something like, hey, I've always been interested in strategy and innovation, and throughout my career I've done this and that. I've led projects that ended up in this, and then
Right.
yeah, so it's good to start with a highlight. It's good to keep your answer fairly short, and it's good to just talk about the things that are relevant to the role that you're applying for. And don't answer the question as if you're reading from your resume.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
so I spent a lot of time you know practicing my spiel, and I think that's what really helped me build my confidence and uh, reach out to people to network with them.
Right. As an international student from the Philippines, did you have any issues with language?
Language. No, I was very fortunate that I did not have any issues with language. The Philippines, most Filipinos speak
Hmm.
English fairly well, and I grew up in a household that uh, used English just as much as we used Filipino.
Yeah.
Um, so that was really good. Um, but yeah, I do see how language can be a big issue for newcomers. I don't know. I personally feel like, mm, yeah, I feel like a lot of newcomers, they come to Canada and they speak perfect English, like really amazing English. And sorry, I'm going a little bit off topic here. It's a frustration that I've had ever since coming here. So there's lots of newcomers that speak perfect English, and yet they have to spend hundreds of dollars for IELTS and then for all of these different requirements,
Yeah.
just to apply for for PR, or just to apply to MBAs or master's degrees and all of that. Um, and all the money I had to spend just to
I know,
get to
man.
where I am now.
So we were talking about you were practicing your speech. You didn't have any issues with your language. Do you any have any issues about like your confidence being impacted just because 500 applications and very little results? Like, did that ever happen to you?
Yes, it did. There were times when I felt like I made the wrong choice, and felt like, hey, maybe I shouldn't have come to Canada. Maybe I should have just stayed in the Philippines. I didn't know it was gonna be this hard. Um, well, when I graduated, the economy wasn't in a great shape, um, and so that the economy was probably one of the big reasons why I had such a hard time landing a job. But still, there were all of these other reasons, like lack of citizenship, lack of PR. I worked for companies that employers didn't really know about, and so I kept on applying to these jobs and kept on getting rejected. And so yeah, it really impacted my confidence. What kept me going was the thought that if I don't land a job, I'm going to have to go back to the Philippines. I'm going to have to settle with Philippine pay, and I'm going to have to pay off all of my loans with Philippine pay. And that thought was extremely scary. And that's what,
Right.
helped me get out of bed and just keep on applying, despite knowing that I was likely going to get rejected in the end.
Right.
Um, yeah,
I know
it
that
wasn't fun.
exactly. So much pressure, so much stress, and of course, maybe everybody knows, but if in case you don't know, when you are in a student visa, you need to have a job at a specific time because there is some timing component. Can you explain more about that stress as well?
Yeah, exactly. So I the IVMBA is a 1 year program, and so but as I was applying, I heard from some alumni that they were able to argue their way into getting a 3 year postgraduate work permit. And so I was like, when I heard that, I was like, great. I study for 1 year, and at the end, I get a 3 year runway to get the points needed for permanent residence. Um, but yeah, after I graduated, I was not able to argue my way into a 3 year graduate work permit. I was only able to get a 1 year work permit. And so my big concern was, uh, you know, shit, I need to get a job right away so that I get 1 year work experience in order to get enough points for PR. That was my thinking at the time. And so I was like, man, I really need to get a job right away. I really need to make the most use out of my work permit. Um, and yeah, I've just been burning money all this time. Uh, yeah, it's tough to have this time component that comes with with your work permit. Like, you get your work permit now, and it's valid for only this number of years, and so you really want to make as much use of it as possible. And if you can't find a job right away, it's just tough.
I know. That's why it's like the mental health, the stress component is huge. So with all of this, try to build a relationship, try to connect with people, try to get a job. It's quite hard. That's why it's a challenge that I've seen hundreds of times. So that is why it's interesting and it's important that we talk about it. So going back to the networking component, because you became really good at it, you started by learning how to tell your story, how to talk about yourself, and then you started connecting with people that you have something in common. You have, like, people from the same university, people with similar backgrounds. How did you find the right people? How did you connect with the right people?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a few steps back and say I'm not great at networking. I I'm a really awkward guy. I
You're so
never really
humble,
had to
man.
network before coming to Canada, and so it's still a skill that I'm slowly getting better at every day. But yeah, I'm not great at networking. Back to your question, how did I find people to reach out to and network with? I Whenever I would go on LinkedIn, I would have these filters in my head that I would use to find people. So one of the big filters I would use was, are they alumni from Ivy? Because when I was applying to the MBA, I kept on hearing that, hey, once you graduate, the alumni will have your back. They're going to answer calls, they're going to schedule meetings with you, they're going to make introductions and all of that. And so that was my big filter. Are they Ivy alumni? The second really big filter that I would use on LinkedIn was, are they newcomers? Are they
Right.
international students? Because these are the people that know what I'm going
Going
through
through.
right now. These are the
Mhm.
people who know my struggle and know how hard it is to land a job here. And why it's so important to land a job right away, because you're essentially burning cash for over a year. Um, those were my big two filters. I had some smaller filters that I would use every now and then if I found the chance to use them. I would also look for people who had similar backgrounds as me. People who work for small-ish companies that people didn't really know about. People who worked in startup advisory, people who worked in venture capital or in management consulting for a boutique firm, for a very small boutique firm. And I would use those commonalities to create a hook. And so I would say something like, hey, like you, I'm a fellow IVMBA. I'm reaching out because I saw this job opening, and I was wondering if I could learn more about it. I also see that you worked at this company. It's really interesting because I used to do this before, and so I would use those filters to create hooks that I could use to get people to accept a connection request or agree to meet with me online.
That's amazing. And then going back to, I think you are great because I met you in a networking training session, and I can tell you, after many years of in Canada, your approach is quite gentle and it's also very curious. So I think those are the secrets of great networking, by the way. And the way that you connect with people by creating those hooks and also engaging them and talking with them, I think that's also masterful. So it's really good. So I'm more curious now. You connected with great people. How do you keep up? How do you keep following up with them? Right now, you have right now a job, and I know your priority number one is to do amazing at that job. But are you following up with the people that you already connected? What is happening there?
Yeah, that's something that I actually need to do a bit more work on. Because it's tough, you connect with
Of
so many
course,
people, hundreds of people on LinkedIn. It's hard to stay in touch with all of them. What I try to do though is try to make sure that hey, this. I try to make sure that I someone that they remember, someone who they can keep in mind if cool opportunities pop up. Like, say for example, they're launching this new cool program that the city of Aurelia might benefit from. Um, it's just cool to keep that connection warm. Sorry, what I do is if they have a birthday, I just say something as simple as, "Hey, happy birthday! How are you doing?" If they get promoted, I say, "Hey, what's the new job like for you? How's the new role treating you?" Um, I use the notifications that pop up on LinkedIn to create prompts to keep that relationship warm. Um, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just gets scene zoned. But it's just it's an easy enough activity that it really doesn't take too much time or effort to do.
And I strongly recommend people to do that because one of the mistakes I made was I will have a great first meeting. There's going to be there was a lot of rapport, great chemistry, and because I got busy, I was trying to get that great first job. I will forget about them. So next time I met them, will be like, oh yeah, how is everything? And the relationship was completely different. So the
Mhm.
moment I just changed my mindset in terms of like I'm nurturing and I'm caring for my network, things change significantly because to your point, like people is like, oh, he really cares. This is not a transactional relationship. This is more about building a meaningful connection. Because I'm going to go back to something that you said, like people like and people hire people they know and trust. So when you were mentioning about back in the day, how some hiring managers is like everybody looks the same, everybody has maybe an MBA, but they will hire those people that they know, like, and trust. I think that is only achieved through networking, from my perspective as well. So I think you're doing great, and landing that kind of job right away, it's amazing. So the future for you, I'm very curious about what's going to happen, and especially with your new job, which is super exciting. One of the questions that I have for you, Joko, is if you could send a tweet to yourself or a series of tweets to yourself before coming to Canada, what would you say to Joko? That is very excited. He just invested his entire life savings into this dream of coming to Canada. What would you say to Joko?
Oh man, uh, this is gonna be funny.
I will
Um,
I will start with Joko. You have a pretty cool last name. You're going to learn about that.
yeah, yeah, that could be tweet number one. Tweet number two would probably be check if you have enough points for PR. That's one of my big regrets because if you get PR, you suddenly don't have to pay the international student tuition fee. You get switched to the domestic rate, and that's a massive discount.
Yeah,
And I realized, unfortunately, way too late that I could have been. I didn't have crazy points at the time, but I there was a small chance that I might have been able to get PR. Very small chance, but still, it's something I could have taken, right?
right.
So that would probably be my first tweet. Make sure that I check if I can apply for PR before coming to Canada. Second thing that I would probably tweet to myself is lower your expectations.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
lower your expectations because I mean there were signs. I, it's easy to say in hindsight, but there were signs that the economy wasn't going to be so great. Um, and had I been aware of those signs, I would have, maybe lowered my expectations, applied to more jobs, networked with more people. Because at the start, I was just so selective with companies that I was interviewing with that I missed out on so many opportunities. And so that would likely be my second tweet. My third tweet would be, man, I feel like I splurged too much when I came to Canada. I wanted so badly to fit in that I invested in a new wardrobe. Um because I didn't know I would have such a hard time, looking for a job. Uh and so I went on a splurge for a bit, and bought things that I shouldn't have. I bought like a punching bag in my first for my in my first condo. That was totally unnecessary. And all of these, really random purchases that eventually made it really hard for me to wait for that perfect job. I mean, at the end, I eventually got a really good job that I'm quite happy with. But that journey of looking for jobs wouldn't have been as painful had I had a little bit more money in the bank account to let me know that hey, I can keep going, I can keep doing this. I shouldn't, throw in the towel yet and fly back to the Philippines.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I guess those are the three big ones. I can go on and on with advice I would, give to my past self, but then
I love it.
I think it's best if I stick with the three big
Those
ones for
three.
now.
We can have another episode about the other ones.
Yeah.
I love it because the exact same thing happened to me. I came with so high expectations that when I started facing reality, I will be so critical of myself, and I will put a lot of pressure on myself to deliver more results. It's like, oh, why I'm not getting more interviews? Oh, why am I so miserable this week or this month? And that extra pressure, we just create a vicious cycle of like being so stressed, depressed, angry, frustrated, and you name it. And in that emotional state, it's quite hard to break through and find exactly what you're looking for. And even to be creative, when you are so mad and frustrated, creativity and being resourceful disappears just because your focus and your energy is just in that mental state. So I love your tweets. I wish those tweets also had come my way, because I will be like, oh yes, this makes sense. I have a random question. If Canada was a person, how would you describe your relationship with this person?
Oh man, that's a tough. I feel like this is one of the questions where I'd like to have at least, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to prepare beforehand. I don't want to say anything too crazy on camera.
I
Um,
know.
uh, if Canada was a person, sorry, if Canada was a person, how would I describe my
How would you
relationship?
describe your relationship with this person?
Uh,
Is everything like roses and you're like still experiencing that love at first sight?
no, no, definitely not. We have definitely left the honeymoon phase, Canada and I. We're, we're we we're probably at this stage where we're okay, we're friends. We're not super duper close or anything. There are things that I would definitely like my friend Canada to change. However, I do see lots of benefits to being friends with Canada, and that's one of
Yeah.
the reasons why I remain friends with Canada. But man, ah, I would love to hold maybe an intervention for my friend Canada one of these days.
I love that answer. Exactly. Like I was thinking about it as I was asking it to you, and it's like, oh boy, my first 5 years with Canada were like terrible. I was like in a very dark, like ugly place, because rejection, frustration, depression, you name it, like a lot of issues. But now, finally, I can tell you, it's like, wow, potentially it's like my best friend. It's a really good place. Like now, of course, we're talking about 14 years later, right? So it's a long time. Now I can say like, yes, finally we are best buddies, or we are like, in a close relationship, a good marriage, that kind of thing. So yeah, thank you for sharing. That's amazing. And yes, I do see why we need to do an intervention. It's needed. It's
Yeah.
mandatory.
I have still yet to get to that phase where Canada becomes my best friend. We'll see. We'll see where things
Yeah.
go a couple of
I
years
know
from
it's
now.
it's early, but as I can tell you, and with the benefit of hindsight, I can tell you that your journey it's been accelerated. It's faster than the normal or the average that I've seen, and I've been talking with hundreds of people. I do this like quite frequently, and it's sometimes it's frustrating to see like why is so challenging, why is so difficult. Like people have like PhDs, master's degrees, and not because that's something special. It's like, hey, they invested a lot of time and resources to get really educated, and they have a lot of experience. Like I think Canada could be richer if we use that instead of just asking them to flip burgers or drive Uber. And I can go on out for hours on this topic, but before we just go ranting about it, I just say I agree. It's like Canada is amazing. I love it, and that's why I'm here. The reason why I'm doing this is to help people identify these patterns so that they can see them, and it's like, oh, I just need to change my direction or my mindset, or I just need to approach for an advisor, a mentor, a coach, because I just need to go from point A to point B faster. So it's pretty much is like there is a gap, and we are here to fill the gap or to build the bridge and help you. So last question, a very philosophical as well, Joko. If you have a billboard that is accessible to all newcomers in Canada, what will that billboard say to everybody? What would be your message?
Oh man, just one message and just one billboard. Not
It
like
could
the
be it
tweet
could be a
question where I could
series.
have like multiple tweets.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I guess What would be the most important one? I guess it would be a billboard that just said extend your runway, and it would have two QR codes. One QR code would be, would link to opportunities for making money, so that you have some income coming in as you're finding your dream job, and the other QR code would probably be like, uh, things like a list of tips to make sure that run out of you don't spend too much, or you don't run out of savings before you actually make it in Canada. Because I got so close to flying back to the Philippines because I was just running out of money.
Wow.
Um, and I literally got my job just in the nick of time. So yeah, it would probably be a billboard like that, and I think that might have been very helpful for me to see when I first entered the country.
I love that. So I love how your brain thinks and how it's like very focused on solutions and also for people to say, hey, here you have list of opportunities and here you have a list of tips and advice of people that have gone through the same path. That's incredible, Joko. Last thought that I have is like for all your success that you have today, is there a person or a group of people that you are very grateful that have helped you so far to get to this point?
Yeah, for sure. Very grateful for my girlfriend. She came to me. She came to Canada with me, and she's really seen it all, been through it all with me. She's seen my ups and my downs, and she's stayed with me regardless of everything that's happened ever since we came here. So very, very grateful for her. It also really helped
Amazing.
that while I was doing my MBA, she was able to get a job, and so that uh, helped pay the bills. And I'm sure not everyone is um, not all newcomers are as fortunate as I was when I came to Canada with my girlfriend. So very, very grateful for her. Really grateful for all of the Ivy alumni that responded to me on LinkedIn and agreed to meet with me. And you know, uh,
That's
were
amazing.
patient enough to go through a meeting, despite all of the weird and awkward questions I was asking. Because frankly, I was very new to networking, and I felt like I asked all the wrong questions when I was starting out. So Ivy alumni, and finally to Ivy's career management team. They were incredibly helpful in teaching me how to network, teaching me how to look for jobs, and design my resume and cover letter and all of that. Um, yeah, those would probably be the three big stakeholders. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if stakeholders is the right word that I would thank.
That's amazing. As you were sharing, I was just thinking it like it takes a village. You need like different groups that can support you. So of course, like the inner circle with your girlfriend, which sounds an amazing partner that is helping you and helping the both of you just to go forward. That's incredible. And then of course the how tos of the community that's supportive of what you learn at Ivy, and the network that you had access just by going to the university. That's amazing too. Hey, I'm just so grateful for you as well that I had the opportunity to meet you, that we had the opportunity to talk today, but also talk in other networking events and training events. So thank you so much, Joko. I think I had a blast talking with you today. It's
Yeah,
I learned so
likewise.
much. Thank you. I learned so much because I see a lot of commonalities in terms of like what people are facing today, and also how we can help them. So another reason I'm very grateful to for you to share your stories, because it resonates with so many. And the purpose of this podcast is to try to help as many as possible. So thank you again for that, Joko. And yeah, any last thoughts? Any last words of inspiration?
I just want to say, I wish your podcast was a thing when I was, thinking about coming to Canada, because it just has a lot of really, really useful information for newcomers. Um, and I think you're doing amazing work. There's lots of value in what you're doing, and I really hope, it reaches all the people that need to see the content that you're creating.
Thank you, Yoko. You're so kind. Definitely, that's the hope, and that's the hope and the dream. So thank you. Well, thank you so much, and Yoko, to your success, wish you all the best.
All right, thanks, Miguel.
For our next episode, we have an inspiring journey from India to Canada. Gurasis opens up about finding belonging through his thick accent, offering valuable insights into mindset, community, and self-belief. You will learn about how Gurasis overcame several challenges in his new home, from housing struggles to job setbacks and cultural barriers. Gurasis shares his resilience, positivity, and the power of networking. He didn't just adapt, he thrived and even launched a podcast about this. If you want to find out more, see you next episode. That wraps up another great conversation full of actionable advice to help you thrive as a newcomer. If you enjoyed this or took away something useful, I have just 3 quick asks. First, spread the word. Post about this on social media or share it directly with somebody that needs this. Next, pay it forward. Take a minute and leave us a review with your biggest takeaway. You can also share your experience by sending us a message or recording a short video at story.onfire.show. And finally, come and join our community. Connect with fellow newcomers, ask questions, and keep the conversation going at onfire.show. That's all for this episode of Newcomers on Fire. I am Miguel, reminding you that with the right mindset and community, anything is possible. See you next time for more amazing stories and practical tips to help you build the life you want in your new home.
We hope you enjoyed this show and that it helps you to find your way or make your way. If you found value, share it with someone who needs it. Until next time, to your success.